I never thought that an ordinary white piece of paper could turn my entire life upside down. I always considered myself a simple guy. I work as an electrician in Tampa, repair wiring in houses, set up lighting systems. The job isn't the most glamorous, but it brings in a stable income and gives me a sense that I'm creating something with my own hands. 10 years ago I married Lynda. She's a dietitian, helps people find balance in their nutrition, creates meal plans. We met at a mutual friend's party, and back then it seemed to me that she was exactly the person I wanted to spend my entire life with. The first years were truly good. We lived in a cozy apartment not far from downtown Tampa, spent weekends together, went to the beach, cooked dinners together, watched TV series late into the night. Lynda loved experimenting with new recipes, and I was always her main taste tester. I remember how once she decided to cook something exotic with quinoa and avocado, and it turned out so delicious that I asked for seconds 3 times. We laughed, made plans for the future, dreamed of someday buying a house somewhere on the coast. I often told her about my work. Once I was called to an old mansion in the historic part of the city. There I had to completely redo the electrical network. The owners wanted to preserve the authentic look but make everything safe by modern standards. I spent almost a week there, laying new wiring so as not to damage the old walls. When I finished, the feeling of satisfaction was incredible. Lynda listened to my stories, was interested in the details, and this brought us even closer together. Those early years felt like everything I'd ever wanted. We'd spend Sunday mornings at the local farmer's market, Lynda picking out fresh ingredients while I carried the bags and cracked jokes about her obsession with organic vegetables. She'd roll her eyes but smile, that smile that made me fall in love with her in the first place. We had our routines. Tuesday nights were for trying new restaurants, Fridays were movie nights at home with homemade popcorn. Simple things, but they mattered. I remember one particular evening in our 3rd year of marriage. We'd driven out to Clearwater Beach to watch the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and Lynda leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. "This is perfect," she'd whispered. "You and me just like this." I'd kissed the top of her head and agreed, thinking that nothing could ever come between us. That memory feels like it belongs to someone else's life now. My work kept me busy, but I always made time for her. At least I thought I did. I'd come home tired from crawling through attics and dealing with complicated electrical panels, but I'd still sit with her at dinner, listen to her talk about her client's progress. One of her clients lost 50 pounds following her program, and the pride in her voice when she told me about it was beautiful. She cared so much about helping people, and I admired that about her. But somewhere after the 8th year, everything started to change. At first imperceptibly. Lynda began staying late at work more often, said she had many clients, that she was working on new nutrition programs. I didn't pay much attention to it. I also had periods when there were more orders than usual. We communicated less, spent less time together. I didn't notice how our evenings in front of the TV changed to silent evenings where everyone looked at their phone. The shift was gradual enough that I convinced myself everything was fine. When she started coming home later, I told myself she was building her career. When she stopped asking about my day, I figured she was just stressed. When our conversations became shorter and more superficial, I blamed it on the natural evolution of a long marriage. Everyone said the honeymoon phase doesn't last forever, right? This was just us settling into comfortable companionship. But deep down, something nagged at me. Little things that didn't quite add up. The way she'd angle her phone away when texting. How she'd become defensive when I asked simple questions about her day. The new perfume she started wearing, claiming it was a gift from a grateful client. I pushed these thoughts away, calling myself paranoid, telling myself I was imagining things. This winter, I noticed that Lynda had signed up for a gym. She said she wanted to improve her fitness, that as a dietitian she should be an example to her clients. I supported her. It sounded logical. She started going there 3 times a week, sometimes more often. Coming home, she'd tell me about new exercises, about how she liked the atmosphere. I was glad she found herself a hobby. The gym membership came with a personality change I couldn't quite pin down. She seemed more energized, more alive than she'd been in months. She'd talk about her workouts with an enthusiasm I hadn't heard from her in a long time. "My trainer really knows his stuff," she'd say. "He's pushing me to try things I never thought I could do." I was happy for her. Genuinely happy that she'd found something that made her smile again. She bought new workout clothes, bright, form-fitting athletic wear that she'd model for me before heading out. "Do I look okay?" she'd ask, and I'd assure her she looked great, never suspecting that the question wasn't really meant for me. She started paying more attention to her appearance in general. New hairstyles, makeup on days when she used to go bare-faced, clothes that I'd never seen before appearing in her closet. But then there were days when she'd disappear for an entire evening. "I was with my friend Sophia," she'd say. Or, "Christy invited me for coffee, we talked so much we lost track of time." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We'd been married for 10 years, I trusted her completely. Trust was the foundation of everything we'd built together, wasn't it? Without trust, what did we even have? Everything changed one January evening. Lynda asked me to bring her purse from the hallway. She was looking for headache medicine. I took the bag, carried it to the bedroom, but she'd already found pills in the medicine cabinet. The bag remained in my hands. And then 2 tickets fell out of it. I picked them up automatically, not even intending to read them, but the name of the cinema caught my eye. It was a premium showing in downtown Tampa. The date? Last Thursday. 2 seats next to each other. My heart clenched. Last Thursday, Lynda said she was staying late at work, that she had a consultation with a difficult client. She came home at 9 in the evening, said she was tired, and immediately went to sleep. And now I had tickets in my hands for a screening that started at 6:30 in the evening. I stared at those tickets for what felt like an eternity. They were for an action movie, the kind Lynda usually claimed she didn't enjoy. Too loud, too violent, she'd always said when I suggested going to see similar films. But here was proof she'd gone to see one without me. With someone else. The seats were in the back row, the premium section where tickets cost almost $40 each. Someone had spent nearly $80 to take my wife to a movie. My mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it really was a friend. Maybe Sophia or Christy liked action movies. But then why lie about working late? Why not mention it casually, the way you'd mention any normal outing with a friend? The deception was what stung most. Not the movie itself, but the deliberate choice to hide it. I said nothing. Just put the tickets back in the bag, gave it to Lynda, and left the room. I needed to think. Maybe she went with a girlfriend? But why then lie about work? And why not mention the cinema? The next few days were hell. I tried to act normally, but inside something was gnawing at me. I couldn't just ask. I was afraid that if this was something serious, she'd have time to cover her tracks. I needed evidence. Answers. I started checking her social media. First Facebook. Nothing suspicious, regular posts about healthy eating, food photos, reposts of articles. Instagram, the same. But then I looked at her messenger. Most of the dialogues were neutral, correspondence with clients, with girlfriends. But one contact caught my attention. Name, Patrick. The last message was sent 3 days ago, but the dialogue itself was empty. All messages deleted. What? If this is just an acquaintance, why delete the correspondence? The name Patrick echoed in my head. I scrolled through her friend list, her followers, trying to find any other mention of this person. Nothing. No tagged photos, no public interactions. This was someone she was actively hiding. The deleted messages weren't an accident or casual cleanup. They were deliberate concealment. I sat in my truck during lunch break the next day staring at my phone. My coworker James had asked me twice if I wanted to grab sandwiches, and I'd waved him off. I couldn't eat. My stomach was twisted in knots. I pulled up Lynda's Instagram again, looking through her recent posts. Photos of meal prep, motivational quotes about health, a selfie from the gym. In the background of that gym selfie, I could barely make out other people working out. Was one of them Patrick? I knew that Lynda used Telegram to communicate with some clients. Her phone was charging in the bedroom when she was taking a shower. I quickly went into the settings, looked at the sessions, and saw that Telegram was only logged in on her phone. I acted quickly, scanned the QR code with my phone, logged in as an additional device. Then I went into the session settings and hid my device in the list so she wouldn't notice. The entire process took less than 2 minutes. Now I could see her correspondence in real time. All I had to do was wait. My hands shook as I set up the secondary login. This felt like a violation, like I was crossing some invisible line that once crossed couldn't be uncrossed. But what choice did I have? She'd already crossed lines by lying to me. By sneaking around behind my back. I was just trying to find the truth, wasn't I? I justified it to myself over and over, but guilt still churned in my gut alongside the fear and anger. The first day nothing happened. The second day too. I was already beginning to doubt myself. Maybe I was being paranoid? Maybe those tickets really were with a girlfriend, and she deleted the correspondence with Patrick simply because he wrote something inappropriate? But on the third day a message came. Patrick, missed you. When will we see each other again? I stared at the screen of my phone, not believing my eyes. Lynda was in the kitchen preparing dinner. I was sitting in the living room, squeezing the phone so hard my fingers turned white. A few minutes later her response came. Lynda, me too. Maybe tomorrow? Thomas works late, I'll have time. I read these words again and again. She was planning a meeting, using my work as a cover. The casual way she typed my name, the calculated planning of when I wouldn't be home, it was all so cold, so methodical. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was an ongoing deception, carefully orchestrated around my schedule. Patrick, great. My place or yours? Lynda, yours is safer. I almost dropped the phone. Safer. She was talking about safety. About me not finding out. The word safer burned into my brain. Safer. As if I was the threat, the obstacle to be avoided. My home, our home, wasn't safe for whatever she was doing with this Patrick. She needed his place, his space, somewhere I couldn't accidentally walk in on them. The premeditation of it all made me feel sick. I spent the rest of the evening in a fog. Lynda put a plate of dinner in front of me, said something about her day, but I didn't hear the words. I just nodded, trying to squeeze out at least some semblance of a normal reaction. The next morning I went to work as usual. I had an order to install new electrical wiring in an office, work for the whole day. But I couldn't concentrate. My colleague James noticed that I was somewhat inattentive, even asked if everything was all right. I replied that I just hadn't slept well. James had known me for years. We'd worked together on dozens of jobs, shared lunches, complained about difficult clients over beer. He could tell something was seriously wrong, but he respected my privacy enough not to push. "If you need to talk, man, I'm here," he'd said, clapping me on the shoulder. I'd nodded, unable to tell him that my entire world was collapsing and I was just trying to hold the pieces together long enough to figure out what to do. The work that day was straightforward, replacing outdated wiring in a small medical office. The kind of job I could usually do with my eyes closed. But I kept making mistakes, having to redo connections, double-checking things I'd normally get right the first time. The office manager asked if we needed to reschedule. "No," I'd said, forcing a smile. "Just having an off day. We'll get it done." All day I checked Telegram. There were no new messages until lunchtime. And then, "Lynda, leaving in an hour. Thomas is definitely staying late today." She wrote this at 2 in the afternoon. I looked at my work schedule. Indeed, I was planning to finish here no earlier than 7. She knew my schedule. "Patrick, I'll be waiting. Prepared your favorite wine." Your favorite wine. He knew her favorite wine. How long had this been going on? How many details of her life had she shared with him? Did he know more about her current preferences than I did? The intimacy implied in those 4 words was devastating. I put down the phone and tried to continue working, but my hands were trembling. James came up to me again. "Thomas, are you really okay? Maybe you'd better go home." I wanted to answer, but suddenly I realized, yes, I need to go. Not home. I need to know the truth. The whole truth. "Yeah, I think you're right." Feeling ill. I quickly gathered my tools, apologized to the client and left. But not for home. I parked 2 blocks from our building and waited. At 3 o'clock I saw Lynda leaving the entrance. She was dressed differently than she usually goes to clients. Jeans, a nice blouse, loose hair. She got into her car and left. I followed her at a safe distance. Tampa isn't that big, so it was hard to lose her. She drove toward the sports complex on the north side of the city, the same one where she went to training. But instead of turning into the gym parking lot, she drove on and stopped at a residential complex a few blocks away. I parked across the street and watched. Lynda got out of the car, took out her phone, wrote something. A minute later a man came out of the building. Tall, athletic build, in a t-shirt and sweatpants. He smiled when he saw her. She walked up to him and they hugged. Not like friends, like something more. The hug lasted too long. His hand lingered on the small of her back, her arms wrapped around his neck in a way that spoke of familiarity. When they pulled apart, he said something that made her laugh. That laugh I used to love, the one that lit up her whole face. She looked at him the way she used to look at me back when we were first dating. My throat tightened as I watched them disappear into the building together. They disappeared into the building. I sat in the car not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to burst in there, make a scene. But I restrained myself. I needed a plan. I drove home trying to collect my thoughts. I spent the entire evening in the living room, going through options in my head. Lynda came back at 6, looked fresh, even happy. "Hi, honey. Thought you'd be late." "Finished earlier," I answered, trying to speak calmly. "How was your day?" "Normal. Consultations, paperwork. Nothing interesting." A lie. A cold, calm lie. It rolled off her tongue so easily, like she'd had practice. Like lying to me had become second nature. She went to the kitchen to get water, humming some tune under her breath. Happy. She was happy while I was dying inside. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. The following weeks I collected information. The correspondence continued. They met twice a week, sometimes more. From the messages I learned that Patrick worked as a trainer at the gym where Lynda went. They met there 6 months ago. 6 months she'd been deceiving me. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of her coming home to me after being with him. Half a year of sharing our bed, eating meals together, going through the motions of marriage while carrying on this secret life. I tried to remember back 6 months, looking for the signs I'd missed. Had there been a specific moment when it started? A day when she decided I wasn't enough? The messages revealed everything in painful detail. They'd met when she first joined the gym. He was her trainer, assigned to show her the equipment and create a workout plan. "You were so patient with me," she'd written to him once. "I felt like you really saw me." The early messages were innocent enough. Workout tips, encouragement, scheduling sessions. But within a few weeks, the tone shifted. Compliments became flirtations. Professional boundaries dissolved. What hurt most was reading how she wrote to him about me. "Thomas is so boring. He never understands what I need. With you I feel alive." Every word was like a knife. She'd reduced our 10-year marriage to boring. All those years of building a life together, of supporting her dreams, of being there through everything, and I was just boring to her. There were messages where she complained about having to pretend everything was normal at home. "Had to sit through another dinner listening to him talk about electrical wiring," she'd written. "All I could think about was being with you." Those dinners where I'd thought we were connecting, where I'd shared my day with her, she'd been mentally somewhere else the entire time. But I didn't show it. I continued to live a normal life, go to work, come home, greet her with a kiss on the cheek. Inside me, nothing remained of the trust that once existed. Every day was an acting performance. I'd wake up next to her, this stranger who looked like my wife, and force myself to smile. "Morning," I'd say, and she'd mumble a reply, already reaching for her phone. I wondered if she was texting him before even getting out of bed. The intimacy we'd once shared felt like a mockery now. When she'd kiss me goodbye before leaving for work, I'd taste the lie on her lips. The hardest part was the nights. Lying in bed next to her, listening to her breathe, knowing that this person I'd trusted with everything had betrayed me so completely. Sometimes she'd reach for me in her sleep, her hand finding mine like it had done for years. Those moments almost broke me. The muscle memory of love persisting even when the love itself was gone. I consulted with a lawyer. My friend Robin recommended a good specialist in divorce cases. The lawyer said that the evidence I collected, correspondence, photos I took that day near Patrick's building, would be sufficient. Florida is a state where you don't need to prove fault for divorce, but this evidence would help if there were disputes regarding property division. The lawyer's office was cold and sterile, much like I felt inside. He was a middle-aged man named Richard, who'd clearly handled hundreds of cases like mine. "This is unfortunately more common than you'd think," he'd said, sorting through the screenshots I'd printed. "The good news is, with no children and relatively simple assets, this should be straightforward." Straightforward. As if unraveling 10 years of marriage was just a matter of paperwork and procedures. Richard walked me through the process. Filing the petition, serving papers, division of assets. "Does she know you're aware of the affair?" he asked. I shook my head. "Good. That gives us the advantage. Get your ducks in a row before confronting her. Make sure all your important documents are secure, change passwords, open a separate bank account. Protect yourself. Protect yourself." The words echoed in my head. I was supposed to protect myself from my wife. The woman who'd promised to love and cherish me was now someone I needed legal protection from. I'd left Richard's office with a folder full of documents and instructions, feeling like I was preparing for war. I decided to act, but not how she expected. One evening, when Lynda went to another training, I packed my things and left the apartment. Left a note on the kitchen table. "I know about Patrick. The lawyer will contact you regarding the divorce. Don't call me." Packing took less time than I'd expected. 10 years of marriage and my personal belongings fit into 3 suitcases and a few boxes. I took only what was definitely mine: clothes, tools, a few books, my grandfather's watch. Everything else, the furniture we'd bought together, the kitchen gadgets, the decorations, I left behind. They were all contaminated with memories I no longer wanted. I stood in our apartment one last time, looking around. The couch where we'd watched countless movies. The dining table where we'd hosted friends for dinner parties. The bedroom where we'd made love and made plans for the future. It all felt like it belonged to a different life, one I'd never get back to. I placed the note on the kitchen counter, weighed down with her favorite coffee mug and walked out. I stayed with Robin for a few days while looking for my own place. Lynda called countless times, wrote messages, first apologizing, then getting angry, then begging to give her a chance to explain. I didn't respond. I had nothing to say to her. The messages were desperate. Thomas, please, we need to talk. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. You can't just throw away 10 years like this. At least let me explain. I love you, please come home. That last one almost made me laugh. Well, she didn't know what the word meant. Robin was good about giving me space but being there when I needed someone. His wife Emma made sure I ate even though I had no appetite. You'll get through this, Emma said one night, setting a plate of pasta in front of me. It doesn't feel like it now, but you will. I wanted to believe her. Through the lawyer we started the divorce process. Since we had no children and there wasn't much joint property, everything went relatively quickly. We rented out the apartment, split the money equally. I found a small studio apartment closer to work. The proceedings were mercifully brief. Lynda's lawyer tried to push for more of the assets, claiming she'd need them to rebuild her life. My lawyer pushed back, referencing the evidence of infidelity. In the end, we split everything 50-50. The apartment was in both our names, so we agreed to sell it and divide the proceeds. The savings account was split. Even the car, which I'd primarily used, went to her as part of the settlement. Fine by me. I didn't want anything that would remind me of what I'd lost. But the most interesting thing happened a month after I left. One of our mutual acquaintances, Sophia, that same friend of Lynda's, called me. She said she felt guilty because she knew about Patrick but didn't dare tell me. And then she added something unexpected. Thomas, do you know that Patrick dumped Lynda a week after you two split? I was silent, not understanding. He said he didn't want a serious relationship, that it was just entertainment for him. Lynda was in shock. She thought they'd be together, that he loved her. But he only needed an affair on the side, adrenaline. When everything got serious, he got scared and disappeared. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd thrown away our marriage for someone who saw her as nothing more than a fun distraction. All those messages about feeling alive with him, about how he understood her in ways I never could, and he'd been using her the whole time. She'd been so convinced that what she had with Patrick was real, more real than what we had. And it turned out to be even more hollow than she'd claimed our marriage was. I didn't know what to feel. Partly, satisfaction. She'd lost both me and him. But more, emptiness. 10 years of life just disappeared. Everything I believed in turned out to be an illusion. Sophia continued. She's in bad shape now. Lost several clients because she can't focus on work. Tried to contact Patrick, but he blocked her everywhere. Christy says Lynda regrets everything that happened. I thanked Sophia for the call and hung up. Regrets. Of course she regrets. But not because she hurt me, but because everything turned out not the way she planned. The weeks turned into months. Divorce was finalized. I didn't see Lynda from the day I left the apartment. Sometimes it was hard for me, lonely evenings, empty apartment, absence of a person to share the day with. But then I remembered those correspondences, those lies, and I understood that I made the right choice. Living alone was an adjustment. I'd been part of a couple for so long that I'd forgotten how to just be myself. Simple things felt strange. Cooking for one, watching TV without someone commenting on the plot, going to bed without saying goodnight to anyone. The silence was both peaceful and oppressive. I threw myself into work. Took extra jobs, stayed late, kept my hands busy so my mind wouldn't wander. James and some other guys from work started inviting me to Thursday night poker games. I went, grateful for the distraction. They never asked about Lynda directly, but they made sure I wasn't alone. Robin became a closer friend than ever. We'd grab beers on Fridays, watch football on Sundays. You seem lighter, he said once. Like a weight's been lifted. Maybe he was right. The uncertainty was gone. The constant questioning of whether something was wrong, whether I was imagining things, that had exhausted me more than I'd realized. At least now I knew the truth. One day James asked me over lunch. How are you, Thomas? You can see you're better than a few months ago. I thought about it. Better? Maybe. I learned to live alone, returned to my hobbies, started spending more time with friends. The pain remained, but it wasn't as sharp. Yeah, I think better, I replied. It took time to realize everything. Life continued. I wasn't looking for new relationships. I wasn't ready. Maybe someday I'd trust someone again. But for now what I had was enough. Work, friends, peace. I signed up for a woodworking class at the community center. Something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for when I was married. There was something therapeutic about working with wood, seeing a piece of raw material transform into something useful and beautiful. My first project was a simple bookshelf, rough around the edges but functional. I was proud of it in a way I hadn't felt proud of anything in a long time. The class was full of interesting people. A retired teacher named Dorothy who made intricate jewelry boxes. A young guy named Alex who was building furniture for his first apartment. We'd share tools and advice, talk about our projects. It was nice being around people who didn't know anything about my past, who just saw me as Thomas the electrician who liked to work with his hands. Lynda remained in the past. Along with all the promises, dreams and that life which, as it turned out, was never real. Patrick also disappeared from her life as quickly as he appeared. And I could finally breathe freely without the burden of lies and betrayal. Sometimes I think about those tickets that fell out of her purse. 2 small pieces of paper that revealed the truth. If I hadn't noticed them then, maybe I'd still be living in an illusion. But the truth always comes out. Sooner or later. I learned to live with that truth. And although the scars on my heart aren't visible, I know they're there. But they don't bleed anymore. They just remind me that trust needs to be earned, and that not every person you love loves you back just as strongly. The scars taught me other things too. That I'm stronger than I thought. That I can survive losing something I thought was essential to my existence. That sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you opens the door to something better. I wasn't there yet, at that something better, but I was on my way. I also learned that loneliness and being alone are different things. I'd been lonely in my marriage, surrounded by someone else's presence but utterly isolated in my experience. Now I was alone but I wasn't lonely. I had friends who cared about me. I had work that challenged me. I had hobbies that fulfilled me. I had myself, which was more than I could say during those last years with Lynda. Today I finished a big order, completely updated the electrical system in a large office center. Returning home, I felt tired but also satisfied with a job well done. My small studio apartment greeted me with silence. I made coffee, sat by the window and looked at the evening city. 10 years of marriage ended. But my life didn't. It just took a different path. And who knows, maybe this path will turn out to be better than the one I was walking before. The lights of Tampa sparkled below, each one representing someone else's story, someone else's life. Some of those lights were in homes filled with love and trust. Others were in places where people were lying to each other, betraying each other, destroying what they'd built. I'd been in both kinds of places. Now I was somewhere in between, in the aftermath, in the rebuilding. My phone buzzed. A text from James, "Poker tomorrow night? Winner buys the beer." I smiled and typed back, "I'm in." Small steps. That's all I could do. Small steps forward, one day at a time. And maybe, eventually, those small steps would lead me somewhere worth going. Somewhere I could build something real again. Somewhere I could trust again. But not yet. Not now. For now, I had my coffee, my view of the city, and the knowledge that I'd survived. That was enough. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.